As Spoonie Smalls says in our YouTube chat today, yeah, time to smoke one and listen to Redacted. Yes, it is 4 p.m. Eastern time. Good to see all of you guys. Welcome to Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media will not. We try to cut through all of the spin and the propaganda. And we have no agenda here on the show other than the truth. We are not pro-Republican, pro-Democrat. We are in the middle or independent. And we try to cover those stories accordingly. So we've got a lot of news to get to here on your Thursday. Looks like the deep state is planning a war with Iran. Again, watch what they say, watch their actions. We're going to lay it out for you. This is an ominous moment from the deep state. Who's actually running the United States of America right now? Who is in control? That question came up yesterday during FBI hearings. And is it President Biden? Is it Kamala Harris? Is it the deep state that's leading us to war with Iran right now? We would like to know as Americans, so we will talk about that on the show today.
Plus, over at the Mr. Beast channel, it seems that there is evidence that they knew that one of their members had been inappropriately messaging teenage boys that they met through their videos. So the inappropriate nature of this, now Mr. Beast has spoken out about it, but it may be too little too late. So we're going to take a look at this because not just this is a story about transgender ideology, it also is a story about what can you trust for the entertainment that's coming for our kids? I feel very despondent about it. So we're going to talk about it as parents as well.
We're also going to look at Kamala Harris because she is now going to be, by all accounts, the leader of the Democratic Party. And you'll see, of course, fundraising is in earnest right now. Magazine covers are effusive about Kamala Harris. So we're going to look deeply today at our girl Kamala Harris and who the real Kamala Harris really is. So this will be good.
Plus, we have a guest on today, Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro is going to talk to us about what the Jewish religion is. Is Zionism antithetical to the Jewish faith? He says that it is. I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. I learned a lot. There's a lot more to learn, so I hope you appreciate it in the same way that I did. This was filmed a few days ago, and I'm excited for you to see and learn from it as well.
All right, so let us know where you're joining us from today around the world. Let us know. We're getting some really interesting economic data right now, some troubling news, at least on the horizon for the economy as it relates to inflation. We could see rate cuts coming very, very soon, as we were talking with our friend Kevin Demerit over at Lear Capital just a short time ago about this economic bubble that we're in. We are like heading for disaster right now, and the amount of American debt, look at this, nearing $35 trillion. Like we are on a destruction path. I'm just curious, guys, let me know in the comments below. Like, where do you guys see, what are you guys seeing in terms of prices where you guys live? Just the cost for everyday items that you're spending. Like, have you seen those prices go plummet? Like go really, really far down now back to sort of pre-Bidenomic levels? Or are they still very, very high? How much are you paying for gasoline? How much are you paying for eggs, milk, just like basic household items right now?
Just a coffee, a regular coffee. For a black coffee the other day, I paid $3.50. And I was like, I'm going back to 7-Eleven where it's less than $2, which very much I like their coffee.
Plus tip, yes. I spend about 7 and change every day. Seven and change on my coffee.
Oh
wow.
Goodness.
Yep.
Oh
and
my gosh.
That's just a black cold brew.
Jeez Louise.
Wow.
Yeah, let us know in the comments here. We're going to talk about the economy a little bit later in the show. It's not what you think it is. We'll talk about that. And listen up, people. We want to tell you right now, if you're not stockpiling medications after what you've been through, you're setting yourself up for disaster. The warning signs are everything with this bird flu in the headlines. FDA commissioner just went on the record saying this, quote, the real worry is that it's going to jump from human lungs. Where, when that has happened in other parts of the world. The mortality rate has been 25%. Yeah, we better start testing, and we better start stockpiling flu medicines like Tamiflu for your family starting now. The bird flu if it's ever to jump from human to human transmissible, you will regret it when near certain shortages hit. That is from Dr. Eric Ding, who is a COVID expert. Now, it's our personal responsibility to prepare for this. And fortunately, our friends over at the Wellness Company developed a Contagion Emergency Kit. It's a prescription-only stockpile of life-saving medications that you should keep in your house at all times. Tamiflu, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and a Z-Pack. Medications that every American should have just in every American medicine cabinet. Our friend Dr. Peter McCullough developed this, and every American should have at least one of these kits in their home. You get 10% off. Just order it. Keep it in your house. That way you know you have it, because Tamiflu can very easily go out of stock. It's very difficult to get that when everyone is trying to get it at the same time. So go to twc.health/redacted, get 10% off at checkout. That's twc.health/redacted in order to get this Contagion Kit and just keep it in your house. All right, thanks to the Wellness Company and our friends Dr. Peter McCullough over there. Well, the U.S. is moving quickly towards war with Iran and Russia, and we will need to ask right now, who the hell is actually running the United States of America right now? Which deep state actors are pulling the strings? Is President Biden running the country? Do you guys think President Biden is running the country? Is Kamala Harris running the country? Who is exactly? We should all be demanding answers to this. We'll come back to that part of the story in a second. But first, yesterday, the real president of the United States, Benjamin Netanyahu, came to Washington, gave his annual State of the Union address, addressed a joint session of Congress. The real reason, of course, he came to town wasn't about getting more U.S. money or more U.S. weapons, although that's something he did talk about. No. The real reason was to make a case for the U.S. to go to war with Iran. According to private meetings he was having with members of Congress, it wasn't about U.S. weapons and money. It was about going to war with Iran. And he also wanted to make sure that we are on the same page in their plans to attack Iran. And also to create a new version of NATO in the Middle East known as the Abraham Alliance, sort of a play on the Abraham Accords, his new name for it, the Abraham Alliance in the Middle East. Listen.
In the Middle East, Iran's axis of terror confronts America, Israel, and our Arab friends. This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization.
So it's all about Iran. 94% of all members of Congress, of course, take money from Netanyahu and Israel and the Israeli lobby. So they are totally owned by Israel. Therefore, all of the massive applause yesterday, there was even like hooting and hollering that was taking place on the floor of the Senate yesterday. Journalist Richard Medhurst had an immediate response to this. Watch.
And then he says, help us fight Iran. Our wars are your wars. We're the good ones. They're evil. And then he says, here's my vision for Gaza. Here's my vision for the Middle East. I want more land by demilitarizing, meaning controlling Gaza. I want you to recognize the Syrian Golan Heights as being Israeli. I want more normalization with Arab traitors like Saudi Arabia. I want you to come and build military bases in the Middle East so you can defend Israel. Basically, do everything that I want. I own you.
Yeah, I mean,
this is exactly what Scott Horton warned about in his book, Enough Already, about how the United States wages war all the way across the Middle East and uses Israel as a land-based aircraft carrier. He is laying that out. This is what peacemongers like us have been warning about, is Israel is saying, we'll be your aircraft carrier, dude. Come on over here because we're on board with waging war with all of these people.
Yeah, and, of course, the mainstream media is totally in the tank for this. CNN absolutely wants a war with Iran. Remember, that's how they made their money. CNN made gallons of money from the war in Iraq. They absolutely want a war in Iran. So does all of the corporate media. They want a war. They want a massive war because that means ratings for them. We absolutely do not want a war here on this channel. And immediately all over cable news yesterday, social media Republicans lined up to support this message of war with Iran. They're all reading from the same Netanyahu script. Watch, here is Byron Daniels.
There is a key decision that needs to be made in politics today. Are you going to stand with Israel or are you going to stand with the Iranian regime that has promoted Hamas and Hezbollah into causing terror attacks on the nation of Israel? It's that simple.
When they say it's that simple and they present it to you as a binary, know that you're seeing somebody lying to you in order to sell you war. I mean, we get this with Putin. It's Putin or nothing. Putin takes over the world or nothing. No, we can see through this now. We are not stupid.
Yes. Our audience is not stupid. You guys understand that this is all propaganda and this is being used. And then, by the way, if you criticize this, then you're an anti-Semite, which you know by you guys.
We're going to get to that at the end of the show.
You guys are smart. You guys know better than that.
Yeah.
You literally have to be mentally retarded to think that at this point. You know better than that. That's propaganda. That's the language they use to try to keep you in support of a war. The fawning praise continued with Senator Dan Sullivan. This is funny.
Just walked out of the incredible speech by the Prime Minister of Israel, one of the most powerful speeches I've seen in a joint session of Congress. He laid out the stakes that this is an axis of evil with regard to Iran, an axis of chaos, and it's literally barbarism versus civilization. That's what's at stake. Iran is the agent of chaos throughout the Middle East. Iran is our declared enemy, as the Prime Minister mentioned and reminded us Americans, and Israel is in the Middle East fighting the fight against Iran. I hope that this speech will give President Biden and the Vice President the courage to drop their appeasement policies against Iran.
Somebody gong him, please. We need to have the gong at the ready for that.
And privately this week, Netanyahu's meeting with the war pigs in both parties to get ready for this war. Tucker, of course, warned us about this months ago.
We seem to be heading to war with Iran. Certainly the Biden administration is pushing us in that direction. What's new and interesting and ominous is that very few Republicans, the opposition party, are pushing back. Instead, some of the party's leaders are encouraging it. Here, for example, is Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina from last weekend on NBC.
You said this week that the only way to keep the war from escalating is to hold Iran accountable, part of what you're talking about now, and that it might mean bombing their oil refineries. Yeah. Have you had any discussions with the Biden administration about this?
A bit. Here's my message. If Hezbollah, which is a proxy of Iran, launches a massive attack on Israel, I will consider that a threat to the state of Israel, existential in nature. I will introduce a resolution in the United States Senate to allow military action by the United States in conjunction with Israel to knock Iran out of the oil business. Iran, if you escalate this war, we're coming for you.
Are you effectively poised to declare war on Iran? That's very strong language.
I am poised to use military force to destroy the source of funding for Hamas and Hezbollah.
No, that's Lindsey Graham. A few others in the Republican Party will be that open about their intentions, but very few disagree with him.
Okay, Hezbollah was created after Israel attacked Libya. So, Lebanon. So, Hezbollah exists in order to tamp down the Israeli threat to other Arabic states. So that it makes no sense what he's saying. Like, Hezbollah wants to escalate. They exist because of the oppression of Israel. So he's just saying words he thinks that we will find scary because they're associated with sort of Arabic sounding groups, I think.
Well, I think a lot of these guys, they speak. Go ahead.
Was the escalation he was talking about, was that, I don't remember when that came up, but was that before or after Israel had fired a missile and killed a diplomat in Iran? Because that sounds like escalation.
I think what he said was before.
Yeah, that was before. Yeah, that was before. So make no mistake, we're barreling towards war with Iran, and Russia will not sit by and watch Iran attack. They will enter a world war to prevent that from happening. Colonel Douglas McGregor just issued this stark warning this morning.
Americans, Mr. Netanyahu will visit Washington, D.C. this week. He will no doubt elaborate in private on his strategy for wider war in the Middle East. His plans should be taken seriously by every American citizen. At this moment, the war in Gaza has already destroyed or disrupted millions of lives. Precise numbers are hard to confirm, but hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and increasingly Israelis have been internally displaced, wounded, or killed. These aren't just numbers. They are shattered families and ruined lives. And yet, there are policymakers in Washington contemplating war with Iran. I ask you, if the human cost of the war in Gaza, a localized conflict, is this high, how much higher will the cost of a war with Iran be? For decades, we've lurched from one costly conflict to another: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Ukraine. The price? Tens of trillions and tens of thousands of American lives. But who pays this price? Not the policymakers or defense contractors who profit from these wars. It's the children of farmers, truckers, nurses, and plumbers who fight, suffer, and die.
In other words, don't fall for it. The deep state is actively trying to push us to war with Iran right now. But as Colonel Mack points out, average Americans would be devastated by Netanyahu's plan to attack Iran.
A war with Iran would devastate our economy. Imagine the Straits of Hormuz, a narrow sea highway between Iran and Arab countries, closed. Every day, 1/5 of the world's oil travels through this passage. If war shuts it down, gas prices would skyrocket, affecting everything from your daily commute to the cost of groceries. We're already feeling the punch from Houthi disruptions in the Red Sea. Now picture that problem multiplied many times over. A full-scale war with Iran wouldn't just be an inconvenience. It would trigger an economic crisis that would hit every American family hard.
And that, my friends, is the point. As Brooke in the chat asks, she says, I guess I don't understand enough about it. Why such hate against Israel? I didn't say anything hateful towards Israel. What I'm simply pointing out is that the United States government and the United States Americans should not be involved in a war in the Middle East. That all you need to do is read multiple books on it. Read John Mearsheimer's great book on the Israel lobby and understand that there is zero benefit to the Americans, to the American economy and to Americans for supporting a massive war in the Middle East. It will destroy us. That is all we're saying. And I have many friends that live in Tel Aviv, and they are actively dislike Benjamin Netanyahu. So this idea that there's this sort of monolith that everyone in Israel loves Benjamin Netanyahu is
or hates Arabs and want a war with
ridiculous.
Every surrounding country. Absolutely, the people of Israel do not want that.
That's why there's been tens of thousands of people protesting in the streets against this, against Netanyahu. They want a ceasefire and they want their hostages released, and Netanyahu will not do as such because that would mean he would lose a grip on power.
And recall that Israel has mandatory military service. You have to serve if you are an Israeli citizen. So that means that every family in Israel would be dragged into this bloody and dangerous war. And what Israel's trying to do is sell us a template so that we go along with them. So then what we talked about yesterday, this mandatory draft would come to our shores too. So it wouldn't be like the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan, where really only the working class suffered the death that in the United States. No, it would be for all of us.
And I want to point out too, it's like, we're sending money, our hard-earned money. Every dollar in the U.S. is our dollars, right? We're sending money to a country that has a surplus. It's the equivalent of like a homeless man seeing Bill Gates walk down the street and giving him money. He doesn't need it. They don't need our money.
Right. No, they don't. They have a surplus and they have a space agency.
But they get to give it back to Congress, don't you see? That's the beauty of it, is we send them the money and then they turn around and give it back to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically a money laundering scheme.
Yeah, it's a great money. Well, just like Ukraine has been a money laundering scheme, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that Americans can stand. We're allowed to protest the war in Ukraine. We absolutely don't want American money and American dollars and American soldiers going into Ukraine to fight a fruitless war.
Oh, no, Clayton, we're allowed to do it now. Recall that this channel was penalized for criticizing the war in Ukraine when it broke out in 2022. Only because of some passage of time are we allowed to criticize that war.
So who's actually running the government? Well, that's a good question. Last night, President Biden delivered his speech supporting Kamala Harris, but he didn't give a reason as to why he was dropping out. We all know it's because he has dementia. He won't say it, though, and he didn't say it last night, though Karine Jean-Pierre told us it has nothing to do with his health, and he would explain it last night. So who's really in control? Listen.
Said that it's in the country's best interest for him to step aside. Why is it in the country's best interest for him to step aside? Does it have to do with his health, or
it does not have to do? They have nothing to do with his health. Again, the president's going to speak to this directly to the American people tonight in prime time. I know many of you all will be watching it. There's specials going on tonight. He will I promise you, he will speak to this directly to all of you tonight. But in his letter, he talked about the country, he talked about the party, he talked about the moment that we're in right now. It is not about his health. I can say no, that's not the reason, but hear him out tonight.
And the president denied for.
Yeah, but he didn't. So she lied. Once again, he didn't mention anything as to why he was stepping down. It had nothing to do with his health. Why then? We still don't have an answer to that. We really don't. So who's actually running the country? This question came up yesterday during the grilling of Chris Wray, the FBI director, and Matt Gaetz asked this very interesting question. He wasn't mean about it. But who's really running things? You have briefings with the president all the time. Who's running the show over there? And if we're barreling towards war with Iran, who's calling the shots? Who in the deep state is running things?
I take you at your word when you say this is the most complicated threat environment you've ever observed over a long career in law enforcement. And I'm just kind of wondering, with this assassination attempt, with the invasion at our border, with all the Hamas that have been let in that you've talked about and briefed about, like, is Biden up to it? And if he's not up to it, and you're a guy who's been regularly briefing him, like, who's been in on this conspiracy to hide the real Joe Biden from all of us for years? It never occurred to you that this guy wasn't up to it in all these briefings you did?
As I said, my briefings with the president have all been completely fine.
Were they between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.?
He's asked questions. There hasn't been anything of note in the area that you're talking about.
Yeah, did you ever have to brief him before 10 a.m. or after 4 p.m.? We hear those are his good hours.
I've certainly times that I have briefed have included outside those hours.
Right. Okay. I just, I think the American people want to know how we got to this point with someone who's so diminished his own party has basically put him out to pasture. And since you had close proximity and the vice president had close proximity, I'm just kind of wondering if you were being straight with all of us about how things were going with him. I guess we'll have to figure that out.
You can count on me to be straight with you, sir.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So, yeah, we'll get your thoughts on that. We want to put up a poll now, though, before we wrap up here on should we go to war with Iran? Let's put this poll up here because we can't do it, I think, on yeah, there it is. There it is. We have it up on YouTube. Rumble does not allow us to put up polls yet. So should the United States go to war with Iran? Let's put that up here on the screen. And you guys can vote here as we proceed with the show. We've got more news to get to here.
Benjamin Netanyahu, you can't vote. Prime Minister cannot.
No.
Okay. We have more news to get to, though, as you vote on this. We're going to talk about the cover-up at Mr. Beast, the channel that is so influential with our children. What have they been hiding over there? We're also going to talk about the real Kamala Harris. What's being scrubbed from the internet? What can we say now? Are we entering a COVID-esque era of gaslighting and what we can and cannot say? Plus, is Zionism itself, the very state of Israel, anti-Semitic towards Orthodox Jews? We have a guest coming up that I'm excited for you to listen to. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at American Financing, because we've been talking about how the economy is terrible. A lot of that is because of all the wars that these governments are selling you. It's not your fault, but are you having a hard time meeting your monthly expenses? Maybe putting some of those expenses on a credit card. You find that never-ending cycle. Well, maybe you have some equity in your home that can help you out. You can call American Financing to see if that is the case. They're helping people just like you turn things around by using the equity in their home to pay off high interest debt. This is what wealthy people do every day, you guys. They don't think, oh my gosh, my home is my only asset, I better not touch it. No, they leverage what they've got in order to buy more assets, not liabilities. So if you think of your home as your only asset, you're not building wealth. You need to study more. So let them help you by going to americanfinancing.net/redacted. They can save their customers on an average $854 a month. So again, go to americanfinancing.net/redacted or give them a call at 866-890-8434.
bunch of people in the chat are saying, does anyone else notice that they're constantly being unsubscribed from Redacted? Yes, on YouTube, this happens constantly. YouTube loves to unsubscribe you from our channel. Independent media specifically, they think that you shouldn't see this content, I guess. So as someone just wrote, yes, this happens every few weeks. So just check to see if you're subscribed. David, can you explain real quick how they can tell if they're subscribed? Because I think it's,
Yeah. So if you look down in the subscribe button is not colored, red, I believe they've changed it. It used to be red to white. Now I think it's white to red. So you can easily tell. It will say subscribed if you are subscribed. If not, then it'll say subscribe. So just make sure you click that again, because they do this every month, and it's been happening throughout the month now. So they're doing it all the time now, and comments as well.
Yeah.
So welcome Gemini.
Yeah.
Yes.
And especially, again, now that the presidential campaign is heating up, because we have seen that Google and its products do not favor Republicans or conservative voices. Again, we're not from either party, but they definitely have a message, and we are guilty oftentimes of wrongthink on this channel. So stick with us, you guys, because at least we're asking the right questions. I really appreciated the interview you did with Ian Carroll, where he says, I use censorship as my guide. If we're censored at all, we probably are on the right path, and yes. I like that. So that's, we try and dance around it.
They don't try to shut people up who are telling the false narratives. They try to shut the people up who are telling the truth. That's the people they want to silence.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So if they're trying to shut you up, you're on the right track.
And hello to all of our friends over on Rumble. It's a free speech platform over there. So thank you guys to all of our Rumblers over there. So, but people are, set in their ways with YouTube, and I understand that. But please resubscribe. They love to keep unsubscribing you. All right.
Well, Mr. Beast admitted that his transgender sidekick, Chris Tyson, has credible accusations of sexually messaging minor boys, and has removed this person from all affiliation with Mr. Beast's channel and brands. But it may not be that easy, because now new members of the Mr. Beast team say that this is just the beginning. Now, of course, Mr. Beast is an important brand to adolescents, especially. I know he has powerful influence on young people, and it can be quite positive, Mr. Beast's brand, but it's but what's behind there? What is it that our children are seeing that maybe we haven't seen? So the story broke this week that Chris Tyson, who now identifies as Ava Tyson, has a long history of sexually messaging a 13-year-old boy that he met while filming Mr. Beast videos. So the two ran a Discord channel together, and images of those messages have surfaced online. That happened last week, and it took several days for Mr. Beast to address it. He finally did just on Wednesday, said, over the last few days, I've become aware, this become aware part is important, of serious allegations of this behavior online, and I'm disgusted and opposed to such unacceptable acts. During this time, I've been focused on hiring an independent third party to conduct a thorough investigation to ensure I have all the facts. That said, I've seen enough online and taken immediate action to remove Ava from the company, my channel, and any association with Mr. Beast. I do not condone or support any of the inappropriate actions. And he says he's going to let the independent party deal with this. Now, community notes, you can see here, pushed back on Mr. Beast, saying that this just became aware part is not true. Many are saying that he was aware all along. Also, he's saying, I'm doing this. I've asked Chris Tyson not to be on the show anymore. Well, that's not what Tyson said. Take a look at what he said on his own Twitter feed. He says, I apologize. He says, this was not my intent. But seeing recent events, we've decided mutually that it's best I permanently step away from all things Mr. Beast and social media to focus on my family and mental health. Recall, he's a father to a small child, divorced his wife in order to pursue his transgender ideology. Now, again, this mutually decided part is not what Mr. Beast said. He said he asked him to do it, so we'll see if it's really his choice, implying Mr. Beast would have otherwise stuck with him if he wasn't so noble and stepping away from access to 300 million adolescents. who watch Mr. Beast. Now, another young person is saying that he also was involved in this Discord channel and has come forward to say that he also was a party to this, and what he saw was indeed sexual exploitation.
Chris Tyson from Mr. Beast used me, manipulated me, and did very inappropriate things with me while I was about 15 years old. I was actually friends with Lava GS at the time, who is the main victim of Chris that everyone has been talking about these last few days, who claims he isn't a victim, but we all know he is, and we all know he probably got paid off. Not only that, but he's also under an NDA from when he worked for Mr. Beast Gaming for 2 years, and he tried to get me to join Mr. Beast Gaming himself.
Okay. Now, he says that Tyson used to call these boys daddy, which he didn't like, but he was too young to push back. Also, he idolized him because they're so famous on YouTube. He also said he played video games with him for hours. So what adult man is playing with 13-year-olds that are not friends of friends, that are not family, and that he would frequently bring up sexual topics that was not appropriate with 15 or 16-year-olds. He would link him to items that were sexual in nature. He says that there were at least 10 kids in this chat, 10 minor boys, not just the main Lava victim and this kid.
I was definitely uncomfortable at being called daddy by a 20-year-old. Even just thinking about it now, it's just uncomfortable. This server later went public and became his official Discord server, but before it did, he had me and Lava spend multiple days scrubbing this Discord server clean of all of the N-words he had sent in it, as well as his friends, as well as deleting the NSFW channels and making sure no one could see that he was spamming corn to minors. This story is so much bigger and runs so much deeper than any of you really realize, so if you want to hear more and you want a part 2, let me know.
Okay, I don't want to hear anymore, but if I were Mr. Beast, then I would feel an obligation to know more, especially knowing that you broadcast to adolescents as your main target audience. And again, what he's saying here is that Lava defended Chris Tyson. We showed you this the other day, where this boy who was at the center of the scandal said, "Oh, no, he never abused me. It was fine. It was just some edgy, inappropriate jokes." And again, I think that there is no such thing as edgy sexual jokes with a 13-year-old, especially if you are a grown-ass man. The daddy part is textbook case of autogynephilia. Again, we've talked about that. That's when a homosexual man has a fetish. It's not a normal part of homosexuality. And in fact, Gays Against Groomers really push back that this is a normal part of gayness. It's not. It's when a homosexual man has a fetish about being perceived in a feminine way and wants you to value their femininity. And a lot of times trans advocates try to distance themselves from autogynephilia. But here we have someone who is trans displaying autogynephilia to minors. That's why trans advocates are so pissed off about this, saying things like this has set back the trans community by 1,000 years. Although, again, research on transgender already showed this. So it's not really a setback, it's proof of this association. Another employee has posted this online saying that Mr. Beast did know, and there will be other revelations about the Mr. Beast brand coming soon.
My name is Dawson. I worked at Mr. Beast from February to May of this year, 2024. Chris is the tip of the iceberg. And when Jake the Viking says Mr. Beast knew, yeah, Mr. Beast knew. I heard many times that Ava, Chris Tyson, is a major liability, but they can't get rid of her because she's already threatened legal action and she knows too much. And when all this information comes out about everything that she knew, everything other people know, I promise you on everything Mr. Beast has done. Amazon, if you can get your money back, get your money back.
Well, there were, in fact, things to know, because last April, Gays Against Groomers sent this notice to Mr. Beast saying this person has previous screenshots of inappropriate content, and you should take a look at this and take him off your platform. Mr. Beast did nothing. Now, these screenshots, you can look up this article for yourself because I don't want to show you the screenshots. They're a little gross, and I don't want to put them, I don't want to platform them. But again, they suggest that either Mr. Beast knew or Mr. Beast was trying not to know. In 2023, Mr. Beast posted this opposition to having Tyson removed from the channel because he was calling it transphobia, saying, no, this is not my nightmare. This is my F-word friend, and these things are fine. And this is transphobia. And this person's like, well, it's a nightmare now, isn't it? Because, of course, this is going to cost Mr. Beast thousands in legal fees. Now this meme has kind of gone viral, and it's okay, it's funny. It's sort of in the vein of the videos that Mr. Beast posts, like, I hired 100 lawyers to save my friend from these like, that's funny, right? Okay, haha. He will have to have a huge team of lawyers because it's not a stretch to say that this story is everywhere. Just look at all the publications that picked it up. You can find on Google News today.
Well, YouTube goes out of its way to say that they're protecting children on this platform, right? If you upload videos, if there's any creators watching right now, when you upload a video, you have to say like this content, is for children or not for children, et cetera, et cetera. You have to adhere to their terms and conditions and their policies and all of these things. And if this, YouTube, of course, is a huge platform for Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is a huge platform for YouTube. They make millions of dollars off of that relationship and that cozy relationship. So it'll be interesting to see what Google and YouTube does.
They could do what they did to Russell Brand. I mean, Russell Brand, they just said other people say he's associated with bad behavior, so we're not going to share the revenue we make off of his show with him anymore. But they still make a lot of revenue off of his show on YouTube. So what if they said, well, your show was used to connect an abusive, sexual abuser with a minor child, and we can't condone that anymore. So Mr. Beast, keep making your videos, but we don't share the revenue with you anymore. That's possible.
I wonder
right?
if, Mr. Beast will say, okay, I'll make videos, but I won't make any money from them anymore. Like, would Mr. Beast go along with that?
Well, Russell Brand has continued to do that. And I think, it's noble that he does, because he's not making money from his YouTube channel anymore, but he has an important message, in my opinion. Will Mr. Beast continue to do that? Will YouTube say, oh, actually, these videos were used to fish for minors victims?
Right.
Well, maybe we can't have that anymore. Will they say anything? So now we know what Mr. Beast is saying. What will YouTube say, if anything?
That's a great question. I'd love to hear from them.
So we have more news to get to. Let us know what you think of this Mr. Beast story. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris. Is she also, does she have two sides to everything? How many things can we discuss while we still can? We're going to talk about that. Also, is Zionism itself anti-Semitic? Because, the Israel lobby is trying to sell us this idea that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. I don't buy that. And I'd like to talk to we're going to talk to a Jewish rabbi coming up about that. But first, I know we talk a lot about gold here on the show, but silver is also a fantastic investment. It doesn't get the news coverage that gold does, of course, but many financial experts believe silver is the best kept secret in investing. Natalie and I are big investors in silver and gold. And when we make investments in precious metals, we usually divide it 50-50. We say, okay, we're going to make another investment this month. And we usually put 50% towards silver, 50% towards gold. And silver, comparatively speaking, is a bargain in pricing. It's in everything from cell phones to batteries, electronics, solar, electric cars, the medical industry, AI. It's in all of that. Silver was in a surplus in 2020, and now it's in a shortage because it's in such demand in all of these things. So it's both a currency and a commodity. And I agree with Robert Kiyosaki, our friend from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He basically says everyone can afford to own some silver. And our friends at Lear Capital, they've been a longtime supporter of our show. They are the precious metals leader since 1997, and they are an American company. They can help you get set up investing even just a portion of your US dollars right now in precious metals, specifically silver. Just get on the phone with them and call them. They're an American company. They don't outsource it to some Indian call center somewhere. You're going to talk to an American, and they're going to help you. 1-800-613-3557. And when you call them, ask for their free silver shortage report right now so you can actually learn about how in demand silver is. Just call their 800 number, 1-800-613-3557, or go to learredacted.com. I mean, Natalie and I own silver. It just moved above $30 an ounce. And if it goes back to record highs, you will do very well. That number again, 1-800-613-3557, or go to learredacted.com is the place to go on that. Let's just talk about censorship for a real quick second here on the channel, David. So I saw someone saying, hey, you guys blocked us on Rumble for saying something
And the person was on YouTube saying, please unblock me. First of all, YouTube blocks comments all the time, and they have an AI that deletes comments, blocks comments. We only block stuff if you say something nasty about my wife, say something crude. I have a policy here where I will shut you down. I have no tolerance for that. And what else do we also block of you? Yeah, we all will. Well, so we're very protective.
Yeah. So when you have communities this big, you have to have rules. Like you can't post links and stuff like that, because if you allow links, then it gets out of hand. People are sharing.
Plus, it's spam. People can put links in there, and it can be actually phishing attacks, and so we absolutely no links allowed. Do not post a link on our channel, because it can lead to spam. It can lead to links off platform to another website. Who knows what it is? So please, we do not allow links at all.
I think what people need to understand, though, is when you have a community, okay, you're coming into our house. We have rules. We don't have very many rules, but we have to enforce what we have. And that is not censorship. That is just enforcing community rules so that it's a good experience for as many people as possible. That's not censorship. So people kind of misconstrue that with censorship.
Yeah. You invite someone in your house. You don't come into their house and take a dump on their carpet, right? So that's what we have here. So exactly. All right, we've got more news. Yeah, exactly. You're not allowed to do that in my house. All right. Well, something stunning is happening in America now that Kamala Harris is in charge of the United States. America's GDP is surging. The economy is booming. Inflation is cooling, and your life is now greatly improved. In fact, you've even lost weight. Guys, Kamala Harris is the real deal, and you better pony up to the bar. Overnight, the federal government released their new GDP numbers, and the timing and the numbers are stunning. Take a look at this. Looks like the first estimate of the Q2 GDP came in at a whopping 2.8%. That's double the final quarter one print of 1.4%, double. That was already its lowest print since the technical recession of Q2 2022. So, my God, guys. It is real. It is real. The Kamala effect is real. UBS says this morning the details suggest very strong growth. Investment rose 8.4%, the highest since Q3 of 2023. And they say any talk of a recession, this is UBS saying this, any talk of a recession now needs to be thrown out the window.
Okay.
So they're calling it Kamalanomics. Forget the old days of Bidenomics. Happy days are here again. And guys, the excitement is real. Act Blue, which is a Democrat donation platform where you can donate to Kamala Harris and other Democrats, just saw a record number of donations pouring in for Kamala Harris, and thank God. Yesterday was Act Blue's best day of 2024 and possibly of all time, just hours. They received $50 million. Kamala Harris's presidential campaign now says, according to Fast Company, it raised a stunning $100 million from 1.1 million donors. Holy smokes, that's a lot of donors. Between Sunday and late Monday, in one day, 1.1 million folks came on board in the wake of the presidency, in the wake of President Joe Biden announcing he will not seek re-election. In the first 24 hours alone, the campaign had raked in $81 million, mostly from new donors, as CBS News reported. Now, President Biden has transferred also $91 million in his campaign funds over to Kamala Harris. And you know that pesky Donald Trump is now suing the Biden campaign for breaking Federal Election Commission guidelines. You're not allowed to just hand the money over. I mean, come on, Trump, back off. He made that money. He's going to give it to his friend Kamala. Back off, President Trump. God bless President Biden for doing that. We need Kamalanomics to keep going. We need to keep rolling. I need to keep losing weight as a response of this. And shame on journalists. I mean, shame on them. Shame on journalists like James O'Keefe for trying to say that Act Blue is illegally funneling millions of dollars to Democrats using fraudulent donations. How dare he? How dare he? Shame on him for pointing out that if someone made a $5 donation one time 5 years ago, Act Blue, the organization, would then use your name and address then to funnel millions of additional illegal dollars into candidates. I mean, doesn't everyone do that?
Hey there, Mr. Riggs. Yes. James O'Keefe, just asking about those contributions. We spoke on the phone. Have you donated to Act Blue in the past?
I don't believe so.
You're listed as someone who's given over 31,000 individual contributions to various causes for a total of $230,000 using your name in this address.
No, that's not us.
That's not you?
No.
Have you ever donated to Act Blue? Or
I think my wife has, but nowhere near it.
Are you aware that people are using your name?
No.
Have you donated?
Shame on him for that kind of gotcha journalism. Did you see how he tricked that guy into answering those gotcha questions? And that's the kind of journalism they do in North Korea and communist countries. There's also a nasty rumor going around about Kamala Harris that she was appointed by President Biden as the border czar. Come on. Really? Nothing could be further from the truth. Thank God the great team of journalists at CBS, CNN, MSNBC are there to set the record straight.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
Yeah, thank God we have journalists like CNN, MSNBC, and CBS to set the record straight on all of this BS. Even the House of Representatives today got in on all the fake news. They drew up a resolution to remove Kamala Harris as border czar. Here is House resolution. Take a look at this. 253 in the House of Representatives. This, of course, they showed this off. I mean, this wasn't drawn up today. Excuse me. This was drawn up back in 2023. Whereas on March 24th, 2021, Vice President Kamala Harris was named border czar in charge of leading efforts to stem migration across the United States. This is an official House bill repealing her from this job, and that bill was put before Congress last year.
Also, I would like to let you know, if you're not already subscribed to the newsletter, that we linked you to the original announcement from 2021, right after the Biden administration took office, saying that she was in charge of the border.
That's fake news.
Look at that while you still can. I linked you to it in the newsletter this morning.
Don't listen to her.
Okay.
That's fake news. And if you see
it's at whitehouse.gov for now.
Fake news.
Until Big Brother takes it away.
Fake news. And if you see this Newsbusters video floating around out there from these very same CNN journalists and MSNBC journalists, and I think you should just ignore it. Okay, this is a Newsbusters video, and just pretend it's not real, because we need to throw our support behind Kamala.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Yeah. Fake news. Okay. Another disgusting rumor has also been circulating around about Kamala, and we need to put an end to it right now. People are trying to say that she was the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. Stop it. That's just another Trump lie. Here, I mean, they're trying to say that this GovTrack website, which showed she was ranked as the most liberal senator compared to all senators 4 years ago on their website, is a Trump lie. And to stop that lie, this morning, GovTrack deleted it from its own website.
Oh, good.
So we got rid of that right off of their website.
I mean, the Ministry of Truth has got to get in there.
We got to get that stuff off our own website from 4 years ago. No one needs to see those lies. Meanwhile, turncoat President Obama should be ashamed of himself. A new report out this morning, he's the only one of us right now who's not endorsing Kamala. According to a new report, he thinks she's unqualified. That's just disloyalty by Obama. Disgusting. Listen to his disgusting quotes to a source. Obama's very upset. He knows she can't win, the source was quoted as saying. Obama knows she's just incompetent. The border czar who never visited the border, saying that all migrants should have health insurance. She cannot navigate the landmines that are ahead of her, Obama said. The source also warned that Harris would likely make a fool of herself at the debate, according to Obama. Again, that is just disgusting attacks on our girl Kamala. How dare he talk that way against her? She's the real deal. Don't let these rumors run rampant anymore. Thank you. We've got more news to get to here on this Thursday. We're going to look at what is Zionism anti-Semitic? That, of course, is the new talking point from Benjamin Netanyahu. And if you have something to say against Zionism or a government, then you are somehow anti-Semitic, even though you have nothing bad to say about Judaism. See how we're conflating all of this stuff together? It's really fascinating how all of this works now.
Right.
If you talk that way, then you're an anti-Semite.
And I'm going to take credit. I'm sorry, I misspelled anti-Semitism there. I see it, and I appreciate you pointing it out. Sorry about that. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about our friends over at Hillsdale College, because you know we are a fan of being as educated as possible, and you cannot educate yourself just with news headlines, TikToks, Instagram Reels, or even YouTube shows. A lot of time on this show, we talk about things that require further study. So if you'd like to study, say, history, economics, great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution, well, you can take a look at some of the courses offered at Hillsdale College. They have more than 40 free online courses in the most important and enduring subjects. You can learn about the works of C.S. Lewis, again, stories about the book of Genesis, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution, which is being tested in our society every single day, and so many of them are free. One of them you might enjoy is American Citizenship and Its Decline by Victor David Hansen. This is an 8-lecture course where he explores the history of citizenship in the West and the threats that it faces today, and you can do this on your own time. It's a self-paced course. So right now, see what you'd like to learn on your own to further your education by going to hillsdale.edu to get started. It's free and easy to get started. Again, that's hillsdale.edu/redacted. Well, is anti-Zionism the new anti-Semitism? Well, that's what the Israel lobby would have you believe. But last week I had a chance to sit down with Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro. He says that this is absolutely wrong and used to sell you war. He says Zionism itself is anti-Semitism and that the Israeli government is dangerous for Jews all around the world. So I'm excited for you to listen to this interview and let me know what you think. Rabbi, it's so nice to meet you. I really enjoyed some of the other media that you have been doing. And so I was anxious to talk to you because of this paradigm that's new to me. You say that Zionism itself is anti-Semitic, and you are trying to teach people what Judaism actually is and how it is completely separate and apart from Zionism. So can you explain that for us? Because like I said, this is new to me. How is Zionism anti-Semitic?
Judaism is a religion. Jews have looked at themselves as a religion for thousands of years. There are various different interpretations of this religion, everybody from Jews for Jesus to the Reform Jews to the Orthodox Jews, etc. Zionism came and said something completely different. It said the Jews are not a religion. The Jews are a nationality. Just like the Greeks had a religion, they worshipped Zeus and the Norsemen worshipped Odin, but their identity was a national identity. The Jews are a nationality. And Israel is the state of that nationality. They were the first people that said to say that the Jews are not a religion, they're a nationality. There were perhaps some quirky, exceptional Jews, can count them on one hand, throughout history that believed that, but the Zionists were the first one to do it. In addition, the Zionists claim to speak in the name of all the Jews all over the world. Israel claims to be my state. Their nation-state law of 2018 says that Israel is the nation-state of all Jews all over the world, meaning that America is not my country, Israel is my country according to Israeli law. Netanyahu wrote in one of his books that the reason why anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, I'm sure you've heard that little piece of nonsense. Yes, and
yes, and it confuses me.
Well, okay, the reason why it's confusing is because it's based on an ideology called Zionism. And Netanyahu said that to say I'm against Israel, but I'm not against Jews is the same as saying I'm against the existence of America, but I'm not against American identity. According to Israel, according to Zionism, according to Netanyahu, the Jews are nationals, who may or may not be religious, and Israel is the country of that nationality, which means, like Jonathan Pollard said, he said that he would recommend Jews in America should spy on America for Israel because Jews have loyalty to Israel. According to Netanyahu, according to Zionism, my country is not the United States of America. My country is Israel. In 1917, when they made the Balfour Declaration in England, there was one Jewish member of the cabinet, a man by the name of Edwin Montague. He was against the Balfour Declaration, and he was against Zionism. He said, if you're going to create a Jewish nationality and a Jewish state, you're going to make the Jews foreigners in their own countries. And the Zionists want this. It's anti-Semitic because, first of all, it denies my Jewish identity. It's a complete erasure of Jewish identity. And two, it claims that I'm not a real American. I am Jewish by religion. My family's from Poland. I have nothing to do with Israel. It's not a question of I'm for or against Israel's policies. I have as much to do with Israel. Jews have as much to do with Israel as they do with China. Inherently. Israel, my family's from Poland. By religion, I'm Jewish. I'm here in America. What connection do I have with some random country they made in 1948? Now, Israel's status law, 1952 or 53, said that Israel considers the state of Israel the project and result of the national of all Jews all over the world. It's the national movement of all Jews all over the world, but that's nonsense. It's not. A bunch of Zionists got together, decided to make a country, and now speak in the name of all Jews all over the world. And to say to everybody in the world, to you, that I am not a real American as much as you are. I have loyalty to Israel. Netanyahu, when he came to America last time to speak to Congress to squelch Barack Obama's Iran deal, right before he left, he said, I go to America to represent not merely the people that voted for me, but I represent all Jews all over the world. He claims to be basically the prime minister of the Jews. And Naftali Bennett said clearly Netanyahu is the prime minister of the Jews. He is not the prime minister of the Jews. My president, whether I like him or not, is Joe Biden, okay? And I have nothing to do with that country, and yet that country goes around slandering me and my people, claiming that they speak in our name, number one. They're the only Jews in the world that do that. Look, everybody has an opinion about what Judaism is, right? No problem. But nobody says that they are the prime minister of the Jews, that they are the state of the Jews, that they speak in the name of the Jews, that they are the national movement of all Jewish people. That's nonsense. Orthodox Jews, I know that I believe Orthodox Judaism is correct. The others are incorrect. Fine, but I recognize the fact that there are others out there. Israel believes, and they tell everybody, that they are the state of all Jews. Israel claims to be my state. In the words of Avigdor Lieberman and Danny Ayalon, with France is to the French and Japan is to the Japanese, Israel is to the Jews. That's Zionism. Without Zionism, Japan is to the Japanese and France is to the French, what Israel is to the Israelis.
Yes, right.
This idea that Israel...
Well, one of the things that you said in a recent interview that I really found it kind of jaw-dropping is that Judaism fundamentally is an invitation to study the Word of God, and it is a peaceful, to absolutely full stop, peaceful religion. And I turned to my husband, I said, maybe I'm a Jew because I like to study and I am anti-war. And you say that it's an invitation to anyone to follow this doctrine, and it absolutely doesn't. So can you speak to that and why then a war would be waged in the name of this doctrine?
Okay, first, they're not waging war in the name. Well, they don't believe in this doctrine. Netanyahu is not a religious man at all. He does not follow Judaism at all. He does not eat kosher food. He does not keep the Sabbath. He does not believe in the 13 fundamentals of our religion. He is not a practicing Jew or an observant Jew or a believing Jew at all in the slightest. He is, number one, pandering to the evangelicals. Number two, he wants people to believe that he's acting out of some sort of religious obligations, which he's not.
Yeah.
He wants to pander to the religious people, both religious Zionists, there are such things, and religious evangelicals. He wants to pander to them. Netanyahu doesn't believe one word he's saying. They're not waging a war in the name of Judaism. They're waging a war for Israel. You know, they want it to look like a religious war. The reason is because if it's a religious war, it's a war against Amalek. It's a war against Islamic Muslim fanatics. Such wars can never be solved. They can never stop. It's just like the Hatfields and the McCoys. You're going to stop them. You're going to get a compromise. No one compromises their religion. So if it's a religious war, it just goes on forever. They don't want you to think, okay, well, maybe Israel can stop the war. Maybe they don't have to make so many wars. Maybe a war is not necessary. Maybe negotiation is better. They don't want you to they don't want you to believe that Jews are going to their death. Okay, never mind what they're doing to Gaza. Israel itself is sending Jews to their death to fight a war for politics, so that Netanyahu can stay in office, or for some other political reasons. If it's Judaism and it's your religion and your identity, then you become more committed to it. But it's not. He's lying. He doesn't even believe that himself. Now, as far as you becoming Jewish, if you follow the doctrine, it's not enough. Part is you have to be committed to the doctrine. In other words, it's more important to be committed to it because everybody sins. Nobody's perfect. If Jews don't follow the doctrine, but they try and they're committed to it, that's what makes somebody a Jew. If somebody's
I did not mean to make light. I just felt like, those are virtues that I subscribe to as well. This doesn't seem like a club that I can't get into because I wasn't born in it or I have no Israeli connection. This is something different. That's why I was so moved by that.
Right. No, of course you can. Donald Trump's daughter converted to Judaism, right? Yes. Ivanka Trump is Jewish and she married a Jewish guy and she has Jewish children. You can convert to Judaism. In the book of Ruth, it says that King David, in the book of Ruth in the Bible, that King David himself is a descendant of Ruth, who was a convert. She was a Moabite woman who converted to Judaism. Plenty of Jews accept converts. Of course, it has nothing to do with blood. It has nothing to do with some country in the Middle East. That's Zionism, and that's why it's anti-Semitic. It just, listen to what you just said. This is what you thought. You thought this because this is what Israel and the Zionists tell everybody, which means my identity as a regular Jew that wants nothing except to serve God, fulfill my religion, pay my taxes here in America, take a walk along the base, spend some time with my family, and leave me alone. I have nothing to do with some foreign country 6,000 miles away any more than I do with China or Japan or Russia. Just leave me out of your politics. I have enough with American politics. I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and I want nothing to do. I have nothing to do with any, loyalty, nothing with any foreign countries. They're just imposing their beliefs upon me, and they're going around telling everybody that I'm responsible for their actions.
As a commodity almost, because one of the first exposures I had to this idea that Jews are a commodity in order to feed into the Israeli idea was from Ilyan Pape's book, when he talks about how post-Holocaust, Israel went and signed up the survivors and talked them out of traveling to the United States, which was where most of them wanted to go because either they had family there or they were traumatized by being in that region. And Israel said, oh, no, you're coming to Israel. You're not going to the United States. And they took those people out of survivor camps in order to boost their numbers. These are stories we are not told, right? And so this idea that a Judaism identity boosts this state ideal is relatively new and not spoken of, I think, in the conversation around Judaism.
Well, you're right. And that's because the people listening to the conversation around Judaism aren't going to the scholarly sources. They're going to the media and to the news and to listening to Netanyahu, and they assume as a matter of just a given, just an axiomatic given, that Israel represents the Jews, that Israel's the state of the Jews. It's not. It's a lie. Absolute lie. And Zionism is absolutely opposed to Judaism in that sense. It's nationalism. It's the nationalization of the Jewish religion, of Jewish identity. It's it's identity theft, I call it. That they wanted to be the Jews. They wanted to be the Jews because there's a whole historical reason, whole history behind that. But the Zionists they make a lot of trouble for us. They love anti-Semitism all over the world because then their answer is, of course, everybody has to come move to Israel. There's on campus, if people protest for the Palestinians, they're all anti-Semites and they want to kill you. Just recently, they said that some guy got up at the Republican National Convention. Someone sent me a clip of some guy that said that they're going to elect Donald Trump and he's going to make the United States safe again, once more, for Jews to walk around with their yarmulke because currently it's not safe. Now, that's insane. I literally, all my life, have walked around the United States with a yarmulke, and every day I'm in New York and I do. we're safe here, much safer than they are in Israel. But the idea that we're not safe, because why? Because why? It's nonsense. But Israel wants Jews to feel unsafe. And if you notice, whenever they talk about anti-Semitism on campuses, they don't talk about how many Jews are not safe. They don't speak about how many Jews were hurt, how many Jews were harmed. They speak about how Jews feel unsafe. They go around to Jews and they say, you should feel unsafe. They want to kill you. They want to kill you. So, oh my God, I'm scared. And then they say, oh, look, see, Jews feel unsafe. Well, of course. And now what's the solution? Go to Israel. Go to Israel. Israel's the safest place for. Did not President Biden recently say that if not for Israel, Jews wouldn't be safe anywhere around the world? What kind of nonsense is that? Is that not anti-Semitic? I mean, come on. I am a minority here in this country, and would he say that about any other minority? He's supposed to keep me safe. I pay taxes to him to keep me safe, and he's saying that he, as my president of the United States, he's not keeping me safe. Some foreign country's keeping me safe. Isn't that insane?
Well, yes, it is, especially in light of October 7th. We've covered many times on this show how the Israeli government was responsible for creating Hamas. And so that fundamentally makes people who live in Israel unsafe. So can you tell me what the Orthodox Judaism response would have been to October 7th? Or is that even a question because the Orthodoxy would not have created this conflict with Hamas? I'm not sure where to come at this. You see, I'm circling it. So can you help me?
That's right. It's that question is similar to ask, in a way, it's similar to asking me what's the Orthodox response to Ukraine's bombing Russia. The Orthodox Jews have nothing to do with what Israel did. Israel's China. Zelensky's Jewish and Netanyahu's Jewish, and their actions equally represent the Jews and are equally connected with Orthodox Jews. That's number one. Number two, Orthodox Jews would not have created the state of Israel anyway. We're not allowed to have a state of Israel. We're a religion. And until the Messiah comes, we're not even allowed to have any state, any sovereignty at all. We would not have created this. And I want to tell you something. You talk about before what you heard from Ilan Pappy. 100 years ago, a few weeks ago, was the 100th anniversary of the death of a man named Yaakov Dahan. I don't know if you heard of him. Here's the story. When the Jews were in the early 1900s, when the Zionists and the Arabs and the British were all fighting over that land to determine who's going to be in control of it, the Jews said that we don't want the Zionists here. We'd rather live under the Ottomans. We'd rather live under the British. We don't want the Zionists. It's bad for spiritually. It's bad physically. It's bad for our security. We don't want it. But they didn't have an in to the British, who then had the mandate. But there was a man who was a Dutch guy, Yaakov Dahan. He was a lawyer and a poet and a professor, and he was very hooked. He was a famous guy. He was very hooked up, very prominent scholar. And Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he was the chief rabbi of the Orthodox community back then. He sent Yaakov Dahan, he said, go to the British and tell them that the Orthodox Jews here, we don't want Israel. We don't want this so-called Jewish state. And right before he was ready to go to England, so he was coming out of a hospital where there was a synagogue inside the hospital, coming out of his prayers, a man by the name of Avram Tahomi, a Zionist. It was a funny thing because the streets were kind of empty. It was an eerie scene. A guy comes over to him, Avram Tahomi, his name was, sir, do you have the time? He looked at his watch, and he took out a gun and shot him 3 times in the chest. It was an assassination. The Zionists, the Zionist Haganah, the organized Zionist militia, which later became the IDF, assassinated this man. Now, it wasn't even a murder. They made sure nobody would be in this street 100 years ago, like last month. And they did it in order that nobody should be able to know that the Jews are not Zionists. They want everybody to think that they represent the Jews. And this prominent man was going to tell the British, we want nothing to do with it. So they assassinated him. So yeah, the Zionists are not the friends of the Jews, which is why, by the way, the Haredim refused to join their army.
Right. And so now the Israeli army is saying that they will conscript Orthodox Jews, even though that is against their religion. And so something you've been a part of is that pushback, showing that there are protests in the street, that Orthodox Jews will not fight, and they do not want to fight. And in fact, it is against the Jewish doctrine. So you can follow Rabbi Shapiro at rabbishapiro.net for more about this. And I hope what I said about being interested in Judaism Judaism didn't come off as disrespectful. I was very
Not in the
motivated by
Not
the
in the
doctrines
slightest,
that
but
you were.
it came
Okay.
off as
Okay.
That as being you're admiring Judaism.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like, okay, there's a lot to learn here that has been kept from me. I have to seek it out myself, clearly, because the media is not going to help. And they're just going to yell at me. Jews have the right to, Israel has the right to defend itself. If you are against that, you're anti-Semitic. And so this is something that I feel like requires massive study on all of our parts. And I'm inspired by the fact that there is such a doctrine that values deep study, deep meditation, self-responsibility, and anti-war, because I value those things too. So I hope that resonates.
I just want to mention two things about Israel's draft, quick things. Thing number one,
yes.
I'm reading over here from a book called Civil Religion in Israel by two secular Jewish academics, and it describes how Zionism masquerades as a religion, even though it's completely godless. And it gives an example of Israel's army as a tool for indoctrination, for socialization. When Ben Gurion made the army, this is why Israel forfeits their right to draft anybody into their army. Normal armies are militaries to defend the country, but Israel's army was created by Ben Gurion to be a melting pot. He said clearly, it's going to be an instrument of socialization. It's going to be an educational institution. It's a indoctrination camp for the Zionist religion, which means as follows. I'm reading over here. Special efforts are invested in the education of future officers. During the early 70s, the officers' training course included lectures on the following topic. Now, this is an army for officers' training. Listen to this. 1, what is Judaism? What is Judaism? 2, the uniqueness of the Jewish people. 3, the people and the land in a Jewish perspective. 4, war and army in a Jewish perspective. 5, the meaning of Jewish holidays in contemporary times. 6, what is Kiddush Hashem? Kiddush Hashem means sanctifying God's name by being martyred. 7, is Judaism a religion, a way of life, or a constitution? 8, the identity of the Jewish people. Now imagine if the American army would get up there and teach their recruits what you were taught about Christianity is wrong. Christianity is not a religion. Christianity is a nationality. Nobody would tolerate that in an army. Yet Israel's army is not merely an army, it's a parochial school. And they force people to listen to this, and they force people to respond to it, and it's a forced indoctrination camp for the Zionist religion. No country has a right to force people for religious indoctrination. The fact that their indoctrination camp is also a military is no excuse. Israel forfeits their right to draft anybody into that army because it's not just a military. It's a indoctrination camp for a religion which is against, and they teach openly. What is Judaism? Is that an insane thing for an army to teach? Because Israel's army is a religious indoctrination camp, and therefore there's nobody that can expect Orthodox Jews or any religion to subject ourselves to this type of brainwashing against our religion and against our God, because every country has a right to expect people serve the country, but no country has a right to expect people to serve their gods. And Zionism, and number 2, because it's the army of the Jews, because Israel's the country of the Jews, and their army is the army of the Jews, not the army of Israel. You know that Arabs, aside from Jews, are not subject to the draft. They'll accept them voluntarily. But not everybody gets drafted. Jews get drafted. Arabs, besides Jews, don't. Christians, besides Circassians, are not drafted. The reason is, and I heard this from one of the members of the Knesset, I was on a radio show about 10 years ago, because Israel is the IDF is the army of the Jewish people, because Israel is the country of the Jewish people. The Jewish people is a nationality. But all of this is, let them teach people how to secure a country. Let them teach people how to be soldiers. They're busy in the army teaching people about the Jewish religion, how my version of the religion is wrong, and it's just a nationality. Let them separate church and state, at least in the army. Until then, they have no right to draft anybody. Israel's army is an indoctrination camp for a religion, and no country has a right to ask anybody, no moral right to ask anybody to go through that type of brainwashing.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with me. I hope you come back on Redacted another time. Again, you can find Rabbi Shapiro at rabbishapiro.net and his book called The Empty Wagon about Zionism. So it really was a pleasure to speak with you, sir.
Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. I was very excited to speak to Rabbi Shapiro, and I hope you at least, felt that you learned something or piqued your interest in learning something else, or at least it changed the conversation around Judaism or anti-Semitism, especially as a war around religion, I say, wages throughout the world, which, again, that Redacted is absolutely staunchly a peace program. And so you're never going to convince me that bombs are a solution to a religious war. So that's why I appreciated that take so much, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So that's going to do it for us today on Redacted and for the week. We will be live back here again on Monday, and we will have content for you throughout the weekend on the channel. So please stay tuned, stay subscribed, make sure you hit that little bell notification so you don't miss when we have new uploads here on either YouTube or Rumble or whatever platform you're on. We appreciate you very much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week, everybody.